cleanest way to understand this game is this. Woody Sauldsberry had the kind of night that should have been enough. He scored 41. He attacked all night long. He gave Philadelphia a star turn, a crowd, a reason, a pulse. It still wasn't enough because Syracuse stayed calmer, deeper, and crueler in the final 12 minutes. This thing was tied after one quarter of old-school pro chaos. Tied again at halftime, tied again after 3. Then the Nationals took the fourth quarter 29-19 and walked out with a 117-107 win. Sauldsberry got the points. Syracuse got the game. And the mood afterward tells you everything. The next day newspaper framing was basically, can't blame Woody. Another headline angle leaned into the uglier ending, with fans so angry at the officiating that debris was thrown at the referees. That's not the story of a routine January loss. That's the story of a team and a building feeling like it just watched a masterpiece get wasted. Welcome back to the Warrior 100. I'm documenting one game per player until I reach 100. Today's lens is Woody Sauldsberry. And today's idea is simple. Sometimes a game is valuable precisely because it refuses to become a victory lap. Sometimes the point is not that your guy won. Sometimes it's that your guy revealed himself anyway. This is January 2nd, 1959. Syracuse Nationals at Philadelphia Warriors. Woody Sauldsberry drops a career-high 41, makes the night feel personal, and still walks off on the wrong end of the score. So this episode isn't about a bucket count. It's about what the old NBA looked like when one man burned bright, one deeper team kept answering, and the standings made every January possession feel a little bit more desperate. Start with Philadelphia. The Warriors come into this one at 13-18, fourth in the East, chasing ground in a division where Boston already had daylight and New York had built a cushion in second. They weren't dead, but they were unstable. This is one of those nights where home game in January really means standings game. Beat Syracuse and the fight stays crowded. Lose and the climb gets steeper. Now Syracuse. The Nationals came in at 14-18, sitting third, which tells you the East was strange in a very specific old NBA way. Under 500, but still in the bracket. They weren't glamorous, but they were dangerous. They could score. They had veteran structure, and they had multiple ways to punish a team that gets impatient. By season's end, they finished at 35-37, made the playoffs, swept New York in the division semifinals, and then pushed the Boston Celtics to a full 7 games in the division finals. So when you watch this January game, don't watch Syracuse like a middling team. Watch them like a group that was already better than its record looked. And around the league, the bigger picture matters. Boston's already the class of the East. St. Louis was the big power. And out west, rookie Elgin Baylor was turning Minneapolis from a franchise on the brink into one of the great stories of the season, on his way to a Rookie of the Year and a finals run. So this isn't a sleepy dead zone in league history. The league is shifting. The stars are old and new at the same time. The center of gravity is moving. The best subplot here is familiarity. This was already the 6th meeting between these two teams in the 1958-59 season. By January 2nd, 6th, that means no secrets, no surprise coverages, no discovering new personnel on the fly. By this point, these teams are reading each other's handwriting. And that's why the game feels so compressed and not specific. It's not two strangers improvising. It's two Eastern rivals arguing again. And the coaching matchup gives the thing an extra sting. Philadelphia is coached by Al Servey, a Hall of Famer, one of the hardest basketball men of the era, who'd already won a title coaching the Syracuse Nationals in 1955 before taking over for the Warriors for this season. So the Warriors coach, staring across the floor at the franchise that he used to lead to the top. On the other side is Paul Seymour, Syracuse's former All-Star guard, who took over the Nationals after Servey's firing in 1956 and kept them competitive. This isn't just team versus team. It's a shared basketball bloodline. Look at the names on the floor. For Philadelphia, you've got Paul Arizin, already one of the great scorers of the age. Neil Johnston, one of the defining big men of the 1950s. And rookie guard Guy Rogers, who would become a Hall of Fame playmaker. For Syracuse, you've got Dolph Schayes, one of the pillars of early NBA history, and rookie guard Hal Greer, who at this point is just beginning a career that'll eventually circle back to Philadelphia and become part of 76ers immortality. So this isn't just a Woody Sauldsberry game. It's a room full of future basketball history. Now, the Warriors and Nationals are not mirror images, but they're cousins. Same division, same old gym intensity, same northeastern basketball weather, and the same habit of seeing each other over and over until dislike becomes a routine. That's the rivalry here. It's not a mythic hatred, but repeated, practical, professional irritation. Now on to Woody. Woodrow Sauldsberry Jr. was born in Winsboro, Louisiana, raised in the LA area, started at Compton Union High School, played at Texas Southern, then spent 2 years with the Harlem Globetrotters before finally becoming draft eligible. Houston took him in the 8th round, 60th overall in 1957. That's the kind of draft slot that usually disappears into paperwork. Instead, Sauldsberry showed up and won 1957-58 Rookie of the Year, becoming the lowest drafted player ever to win that award. It's a record that still stands, and that matters because Woody didn't enter this game as a curiosity. He enters as proof. He had already survived the hardest professional task, making people revise what they thought your ceiling was. He's 6'7", 220 pounds, played forward and center. And this game had that old era blend of strength, touch, and stubbornness. He wasn't elegant in the modern sense. He was forceful. He looked like somebody who preferred contact to negotiation. In this season, his second, was the real test. Rookie awards can become traps. A guy wins one, everybody says, nice story. And then the league spends a year trying to figure out whether he's actually part of the hierarchy or whether last year was just a novelty. Sauldsberry's 1958-59 season answered that. He averaged 15.4 points and 11.5 rebounds, made his only All-Star team that January. And on this night, he authored the highest scoring game of his career. So what this game meant to him is not mysterious. It's evidence that he belonged above the line, not below it. The first quarter tells you right away. Philadelphia came to punch first. The Warriors take it 31-27. Sauldsberry is active early. Horizon is himself, and the Warriors look like the home team that knows exactly how urgent this night is. They're not waiting to settle in. They're trying to make Syracuse respond to them. To Syracuse's credit, they do respond. They don't panic, and they don't let the building carry the game away. Instead, they do the veteran thing. They keep it within one good stretch. Second quarter, Syracuse tightens it. The Nationals win the period 30-26. The game goes to halftime tied, 57-57. That little math problem matters because it tells you the shape of the night. Philadelphia can win quarters, and Syracuse can erase them. The Warriors can create emotion, and the Nationals can flatten it back into basketball. That's a real skill. It's not dramatic, but it's real, and you can already see the profile of the Syracuse offense forming. Not one monster, but 5 men sharing the labor. Larry Costello's there, Hal Greer is there, Red Kerr, Dolph Shays, Ed Conlon is there. Everybody brings a tool, and everybody leaves a mark. Third quarter, nothing separates, 31-31. Still tied. Now it's 81-81 going into the fourth. And this is where the game becomes memorable in the best possible way. Because at that point it stops being about momentum and starts being about nerve. When a game is tied after 3 in that era, with that many bodies colliding and that much fatigue already in the room, you're not watching an abstract contest anymore. You're watching which team can still think straight. And Woody is magnificent through all of this. He finishes with 41 points, a career high. Horizon adds 33. Between them, that's 74 of Philadelphia's 107. And that's not balance. That's star dependence. Sometimes it works. Sometimes 2 men can bend the whole game. But it also means the margin for error gets smaller, because if the other team has counters from 4 or 5 places, your stars have to be perfect for longer than's fair. Then the fourth quarter arrives and Syracuse finally solves the equation. The Nationals take the last period 29-19. Win by 10 points. And that's the game. It's not a blowout, and it's not a collapse from the opening tip. It was a dead even fight that became a Syracuse win because the Nats finished with better collective poise. They get 29 from Larry Costello, 25 from Hal Greer, 23 from Red Kerr, 20 from Dolph Schayes, and 15 from Ed Conlon. 5 double-figure scorers, 5 separate leaks in the dam. You can't fix that by yelling harder. And the single nastiest detail is this. Both teams made 40 field goals. Same number. Syracuse won anyway, because the Nationals buried Philadelphia at the foul line, going 37 for 41, while the Warriors went 27 for 39. 10 points. There's your margin. So if you want the thesis of the basketball itself, here it is. Woody Sauldsberry and Paul Arizin made enough shots to win a lot of games. Syracuse made enough free throws and enough late decisions to win this one. That's old pro basketball in one sentence. For the Warriors, this game meant a lost chance. You're at home, you're facing the team directly above you, your star has the best scoring night of his career. Your other star gives you 33. You're tied after 3 periods. Those are the nights you have to steal if you want your season to turn. Philadelphia didn't, and that's why this game feels heavier than a random mid-season box score. It carries the emotional weight of a missed opening. For Syracuse, it meant legitimacy, not glory, just legitimacy. The Nationals weren't running away from anybody in early January, but this is exactly the kind of road win that a credible playoff team takes. Absorb the hot hand, survive the crowd, trust your depth, close the door late. They didn't stop Sauldsberry. They just refused to let his eruption decide the entire evening. That's the mark of a serious team. For Woody personally, this game is both triumph and frustration. The triumph is obvious. Career high, spotlight, star-making. The sort of performance that reads like an exclamation point on a month that ended with his lone all-star selection. The frustration is that it comes in a loss, which means the performance lives as less a celebration than as a lament. That tension is why the game is worth keeping. A win would make it cleaner. The loss makes it more revealing. Now, a game like this can create a brand new Hoops fan because it shows basketball as a contest of competing truths. One truth says, give me the hot scorer, the man with 41 points, the guy making the building shake. The other says, give me the deeper team, the extra pass, the steadier free throw shooter, the cleaner fourth quarter. Both truths are real, and they collide here. That's sports. And stylistically, this is a great gateway game into the 1950s NBA because it kills the myth that old pro basketball was just slow sepia footage and names in short shorts. This is high-scoring, emotional, and violent in all the legal ways, full of Hall of Fame talent, and played with the kind of closeness that makes crowds irrational. By the end, the officials are catching grief from the stands. Woody's authored a career-high night, and nobody's leaving neutral. That's not antique. That's recognizable in a modern setting. The Richmond News Leader angle was essentially, can't blame Woody. The broader press memories preserved in Sauldsberry's career record remembers the uglier detail too. The Philadelphia crowd was furious enough that debris was getting thrown at the refs. That combination is perfect. Admiration for the star, anger at the ending, resentment at the whistle. Another mark in the loss column, and that's your post-game presser, 1959 style. Not a quote carousel, a civic mood swing. After this night, Philadelphia still had work to do, but the team never fully stabilized. The Warriors went 19-22 in the rest of the way, and finished 32-40, fourth in the East, out of the playoffs. They had scoring, they had names, and they had history. They didn't have enough consistency. This game sits right in the middle of that story. Enough firepower to tempt you, not enough structural certainty to trust. Syracuse, meanwhile, went 20-19 the rest of the way, finished 35-37, and made good on that third-place standing. Then they got meaner in March. They swept New York in the division semifinals, then pushed Boston to 7 games before finally going out. So when we look back at this January win, it reads like a preview. The Nats were already practicing the version of themselves that could survive in a series. Balanced scoring, veteran poise, and a refusal to let one opposing star dictate terms for 48 minutes. And just to undermine the weirdness of franchise history, this is also one season before Wilt Chamberlain arrives to detonate the Warriors' world. Guy Rodgers' rookie year, 1958-59, was his first and final season in Philadelphia without Wilt as a teammate. So this episode catches the Warriors in that narrow little window. After the title glow had faded, and before the wilt earthquake changes the scale of everything, that makes Sauldsberry's game feel even more important. It's part of the final act of one Warriors era, before the next one becomes impossible to ignore. As for Woody, the immediate aftermath is strong. This season ends as the best regular season of his career by rebounds and one of his best by overall production. He makes the 1959 All-Star team, his only one. The next year, wilt arrives, the Warriors jump to 49 wins, and Sauldsberry role and numbers change inside a radically different basketball universe. After 1959-60, Philadelphia trades Sauldsberry and Ernie Beck to St. Louis. Sauldsberry's later career is itinerant and more complicated than the clean early highlight reel suggests. He plays for the Hawks, the Chicago Packers/Zephyrs, returns to St. Louis, spends time in the Eastern League, and eventually lands with the 1965-66 Boston Celtics, where he becomes an NBA champion, even though injury kept him from finishing that season on the floor. So the resume is stronger than people remember. Rookie of the Year, All-Star, champion. And yet somehow, still a player whose name gets lost in the wider history. Then there's the civil rights dimension, which matters. In 1961, Sauldsberry was one of the black players who refused to play an exhibition game in Lexington after discriminatory treatment. Later, when the NBA initially refused to accept his 1965 Celtics contract, he filed legal action alleging a conspiracy to keep him out of the league before the matter was resolved. So his basketball life isn't just a sequence of teams. It's also a record of what it meant to be a black professional player navigating that league and that country at that time. Sauldsberry's later life was hard. Sources on his final years describe illness, financial trouble, and a body ravaged by diabetes. He eventually required an amputation and died in Baltimore in 2007. That ending is rough to sit with, especially after spending 25-odd minutes with him at full strength, dropping 41 in a packed building and making a city think it was watching The Answer. The Answer. But that contrast is part of why old sports history matters. The box score isn't the whole life. It's the flashpoint. So what did this game mean to Woody Sauldsberry? It meant that for one winter night in Philadelphia, nobody could deny the size of him. Not as a prospect, not as a nice rookie story, not as a role player orbiting bigger names, but as a central force in the room. The sad part is the loss. The valuable part is that the loss couldn't hide him. Next time we leave the hardwood and head to the diamond for Astro 33, Scrap Iron Phil Garner. April 30th, 1982. Different sport, different city, different texture. But the same basic question applies. What does one game reveal about the kind of player a franchise needed that man to be? That's Warriors 08, Woody Sauldsberry. January 2nd, 1959. Career high 41, a fourth quarter that got away, and a perfect reminder, not every essential game is a win. Some games matter because they show you exactly how good your guy was, and exactly how hard basketball can still be when that isn't quite enough. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Or not.